His grandfather and father were Protestant pastors, so he was educated in a religious environment. After studying classical philology at the universities of Bonn and Leipzig, at the age of 24 he obtained the extraordinary chair at the University of Basel. A few years later, however, he left teaching, disappointed by the academicism of the university. In his youth he was friends with Richard Wagner, for whom he felt a deep admiration, although later he would break his relationship with him. The philosopher's life became increasingly withdrawn and bitter as he advanced in age, and the symptoms of his disease, syphilis, intensified. In 1882 he sought in marriage the poet Lou Andreas Salome, by whom he was rejected, after which he definitively secluded himself and his work. Although at present the value of his texts is recognized regardless of his tormented biography, for some time critics attributed the corrosive tone of his writings to the disease he suffered from a young age, and which ended up causing him madness. The last 11 years of his life he spent in seclusion, first in a center in Basel, and later in another in Naumburg, although today it is clear that his confinement was caused by a lack of knowledge of the true nature of his ailment. After his death, his sister manipulated his writings, bringing them closer to the ideology of the Nazi movement, which did not hesitate to invoke them as endorsement of his ideology. However, the distance that separates him from them emerges from the whole of his work. Nietzsche was the son of a Protestant theologian and pastor who died of softening of the brain when he was 4 years old. Since then, the boy grew up surrounded by strong women, first under the aegis of his grandmother and paternal aunts, plated in the manner of the austere Protestant Saxon bourgeoisie, and later, under the wing of his mother and sister, who treated him like a little prince. He soon stood out in the successive schools through which he passed in the small Saxon town of Naumburg, especially in languages, to the point that he was admitted to the elitist Schulpforta, an institution founded in the 16th century, where students spoke Greek and Latin among themselves. And education was Prussian severe. There he began to cultivate his interest in Greek and German classics, showing a predilection for Empedocles and Hölderlin, and coming to be considered by his teachers as the most talented student in the center's secular history, despite his lack of interest in mathematics. That bored him. However, Nietzsche expressed his triumph over the institution thus: "I secretly cultivated certain arts. I saved my private inclinations from the standardization law. I tried to break the rigidity of the programs and schedules imposed by the regulations, giving way to an exalted passion for universal knowledge and pleasure." As a critic of Western culture, Nietzsche considers that his meaning has always been to repress life, the Dionysian, in the name of rationalism and morality, the Apollonian, philosophy, which since Plato has transmitted the image of an unalterable world of essences, and Christianity, which advocates the same moral essentialism, end up establishing a society of resentment, in which the present moment and the infinite variety of life are annulled in the name of an unearthly life and order, in which man relieves his anguish. His hermeneutical work is oriented in this period to show how behind Western rationality and morality there are always prejudice, error, or the mere sublimation of vital impulses. The death of God announced by the philosopher leaves man without the petty security of a transcendent order, and therefore faced with the struggle of different wills of power as the only motor and meaning of existence. The concept of the will to power, already belonging to his mature works, must be interpreted, not so much in a biological, as in a hermeneutical sense. It is the different versions of the world, or ways of living it, which are confronted, and if Nietzsche attacks the decadent society of his time, and announces the arrival of a Superman, it is not that he possesses the truth about the world to a greater degree, but that his way of living it contains greater value and risk capacity. Another doctrine that has given rise to numerous interpretations is that of the eternal return, according to which the structure of time would be circular, so that each moment should be eternally repeated. Although Nietzsche often seems to affirm this thesis in a literal sense, this would be contradictory with the perspectivism that dominates his thought, and it is in any case more suggestive to interpret it as the regulative idea on which the Superman must base himself to live his existence fully, without subterfuge, and to settle in the present moment, since if each moment must be repeated eternally, its end is only in itself, and not in the future.